You are listening to the Pencil and Paper Podcast Network.
You're listening to the Horror Ramblings Podcast, the show about all things horror. We hope you enjoy the show.
Welcome back, everybody. This is part 2 of the Horror Ramblings Horror Today episode that we did last week. So if it seems a little strange, like we're just jumping right in, it is because it is a continuation of last week's episode. So all you have to do is listen to last week's episode if you haven't yet, or just listen to the last little bit if you need a refresher. So we're going to jump right in, guys. Here we go. And I feel like a lot of the issue comes from the studios. And I think a lot of it is the big studios and the relationship that the big studios have with the viewers, because the viewers and the studios, they have a relationship and they expect certain things from one another. Mm-hmm. People expect a certain kind of film to come from a studio. A studio expects that fans are only going to come see a certain kind of film. So when things come out, like Barbarian, for example. When Barbarian came out, that was from a bigger studio. It was in the theaters. It had a lot of... I didn't see very many commercials for it, but I did hear I heard advertisements for it and things like that. So people kind of went in with the mindset of, this is probably going to be this kind of movie.
Yeah.
And then it's all the expectation. People expect it to be a certain way, and it doesn't turn out that way, and so everybody gets pissed. And that's why, and I know that we've talked about this before, indie films seem to be the way to go. Like, you're not going to get all the big attention right away.
Yeah.
But you're going to definitely make your own film, and people are going to see it. And if enough people see it and they enjoy it, well, then what happened with Terrifier can happen.
Yeah.
And that's my problem with studios. Studios ruin a lot of films because they want them to be a certain way, or they want certain things to happen. They force people to rewrite things. When you're making an indie film, you call all the shots. You don't have to listen to a studio that tells you, well, you shouldn't kill this character off, or this shouldn't be like this. This needs to be edited. This needs to be a little more tame, or this needs to happen. The writer has a lot more control. And I think that is where a lot of the issue comes. And honestly, in Hollywood, and I hate to say this, but I feel like in Hollywood that there are just a handful of writers and directors that control everything.
Yeah.
And I think that causes some issues. And I would love to hear what kind of conversations go on behind closed doors when a film like Terrifier 2 is doing super well in the box office.
Oh, yeah. There's no doubt there have been conversations like that. And the problem will be, with a lot of these studio heads, they're taking away the wrong lessons. Yeah. The lesson, for me, what I'm seeing, it's not about the character. It's not about the blood. It's not about what is happening within the film. It's the fact that you allowed a filmmaker with his character that he is passionate about do the movie he wanted to do. Yeah. If you will stand aside and allow filmmakers who have a passion for something to create something, it's going to shine. Now, it's not going to win people over necessarily. And I always point back to this as a great example, especially when you want to watch the world get split down the middle over a damn movie. The Last Jedi was exactly that. A studio film with a big budget and a prolific director who has done a lot of amazing work. And they said, do what you want. Here's your common thread. This is where you're starting. Now run with it. Because that was the idea. You give 3 filmmakers a Star Wars film within this trilogy, and they can all do their own thing. And then what happens? He does something remarkably divisive, and they freak out. The studio freaks out. It's like, well, goddamn, we gotta fix all this. We gotta fire that director, and then we'll do cleanup because we've got to win the fans back. You never lost them. I promise you never lost them, because all those people bitching and complaining were still gonna be there when that third movie came out. Okay. Yeah. So they reacted, knee-jerk reaction to the panic because someone did something different. Because you take a look at that film, every decision, whether you agree with it or not, okay, you have to admit, he said, what would be the safe approach? This direction or that direction? If this is the safe direction, this is the direction I'm going. Every decision I thought that was made for that movie was going the opposite way you expected it to go, and I loved it. I walked out going, holy shit, that was impressive, because I didn't know where the movie was going.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. And this even kind of piggybacks off something you were kind of mentioning, and something I'd actually seen. One of my buddies on Twitter, Fred, I'm going to give you a shout out, Freddie. He posed the question, do you like going in blind to a movie, or do you like having some expectation? And I said point blank, I kind of like having zero expectation, because I have nothing built up in my head to expect, so that when I'm done with it, my reaction is genuine. Either if I didn't like it, I know I didn't like it. If I loved it, I'm sitting there going, holy shit, this is amazing, all because I had zero expectations on it. Barbarian, I went in pretty much blind, other than the one trailer that I saw, but I didn't feel like it gave me it didn't spoil anything for me, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I wasn't sure what the movie was, just with little snippets that I'd seen, so I'd only seen the one trailer, and I walked in blind, outside of hearing people say, well, they make some stupid decisions. That's all I knew. So I was like, okay. And
Now,
I think that's why I was impressed with it.
I have to say something just real quick. Talking about going into movies blind, and nobody judge me for this. So my son wanted to go see a movie at the movie theater, and that movie, Lyle Lyle Crocodile, was in the theater, and we decided we'll go to the movie theater. I didn't know much about the movie other than it had a singing crocodile in it. So I had no expectations of the movie when we went in. We go in, we sit down, and I thoroughly enjoyed the film. All of us enjoyed it.
Good.
We had a good time. I actually really liked the characters. There was one character that I really liked, and he turned out to be a piece of crap. And then I felt bad. I was like, this guy better redeem himself, and he redeems himself.
Okay.
And I'm thinking to myself, I went into this movie with no expectations, and I actually enjoyed it a lot more by not having any expectations.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I think a lot of people should do, and I know it's hard to do that, especially if
today.
Yeah, and if you're going into a film that's part of an existing franchise, well, you already have expectations. But if you can shut that off, and you and I have talked about that before. You've told me that you've revisited movies after you've seen them before and you didn't like them because you had certain expectations.
Yeah.
But then you go back in with more of a, I'm going to go into this and watch this again, just kind of with a more open mind about it. And you enjoyed it. I believe Good Will Hunting was one of the films that you had talked about, you had seen, and when you first saw it, you didn't really care for it particularly.
Yeah.
But then you watched it again and you loved it. I love hearing things like that. I was like that with House of a Thousand Corpses. The first time I watched it, I was like, it's okay. And then I went back to it and I appreciated it more. People need to, I don't want to say lower their expectations, but I think if people just went into a film with no expectations, like if I found out tomorrow that a new Nightmare on Elm Street film was coming out, I don't even think I'd watch a trailer for it. I'd just be like, we're just going to go watch it. We're going to see what happens.
Yeah.
And see what that would bring. Because now it is so easy to see trailers and learn everything about a movie. I remember a time where we just watched movie trailers at the movie theater, and we might see them occasionally on TV. Or you get a VHS and you pop it in and it says upcoming movies. Now you can just click a button and all of a sudden you've got the entire synopsis of the film in front of you. And you hear spoilers and everything else. And so the expectations are just through the roof. When Halloween Ends came out, I had it spoiled for me in like 0.2 seconds because of social media.
Sure. And
that's my own fault. I should have known. I should have been like, I need to stay off of social media till I see this movie. And that's on me. It really is. But I think going in and just being like, I'm not going to have any expectations toward this. I'm just going to go in and see what's going on. I think a lot more people would enjoy a lot more films.
Sure. And, I'll even admit to a degree when it comes to more iconic characters like Michael Myers, like Jason Voorhees and Freddy and so on. There is kind of a pre-existing expectation if you've seen the movies prior. So that's a little hard to disassociate from, and I get that, So you have your version of the character that you like. Like there may be someone who prefers Jason in Friday the 13th Part 2 over Jason in Friday the 13th Part 7, okay? No one has ever said that, but there could be someone out there who prefers, the bag-headed cretin running around with his plaid shirt. But I mean, that's your expectation of the character. That's the character, the version that you want to see. So when they deviate from that, you kind of lose that. I get that. But everyone's vision is not going to be the way you see it. It doesn't. If someone puts their own spin on it, if someone puts their own brand on it, the version that you love still exists. And I think that's something that bugs me more than anything. Just because you didn't like that movie, the character's popular enough, they're going to do another one. Yeah. You're going to get to see this again. And maybe the next one will be your cup of tea. Rob Zombies, we saw that. Some people love it, some people don't. I'm kind of in the camp where I'm just kind of like, I gave it a shot. I've watched them several times, and it's just not my bag. It's not the Michael Myers that I prefer.
Yeah.
But for those that love it, good. I'm glad. I'm glad that that's the version that you can latch on to, and that is your version of the character that you get to enjoy.
Yeah.
So, expectations need to just kind of be thrown out the window sometimes. They're characters. Everyone's got their own voice about the characters. And if we could just put that shit aside, you'll enjoy so many more things.
You made me think of something. It's not horror related, but speaking of versions of the character, as soon as you talked about, everybody has their favorite version of a character, for some reason, I instantly thought of all the different versions of Batman in the movies.
Yeah.
I'm a Keaton fan. I know people who Kilmer's their favorite Batman. I have a handful of people who like Clooney. It is what it is.
Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about. Everyone has their favorite Batman. The Batman that encapsulates what that character is to them. And no one is wrong, okay? No one is wrong. If Adam West is your ideal Batman, that is perfect. That is your Batman. That is the version you want and you love.
Yep.
I respect it. I get what they were doing at the time, but he's not my Batman. I grew up with him as my Batman up until Keaton, but he was not my Batman.
Yeah.
So I get it. I appreciate it.
And I mean, it is harder with certain characters. It's like if they made a new Beetlejuice film and Michael Keaton wasn't Beetlejuice, I don't know how I would feel on that. I would give it a shot. I'm going to mention him again so everybody get their shot glasses ready. Robert Englund is Freddy. He played Freddy through 7 films, and you see him make this character. Freddy Krueger is Robert Englund. Robert Englund is Freddy Krueger. They are synonymous, and it's because he did it for so long, and he cemented himself in pop culture as that character. He didn't just do the movies. I mean, he was on a Japanese game show as Freddy Krueger. To see somebody else take over that role, it's difficult for people.
Yeah.
They attempted it, in 2010, and look how that went.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't end well, and I don't think that was necessarily because of Jackie Earle Haley. That was because of the script.
Yeah, I mean, Jackie Earle Haley was an inspired choice. I'll give it that. I mean, I don't dislike him in the role because they were trying to do something wholly unique, and it was an interesting spin.
Yeah.
But like you said, script was the problem.
Yeah.
We've said that numerous times before, and I don't blame him at all. His take was very interesting.
Yeah, I think he did a fantastic job. In all honesty, people play characters for so long that they become iconic. It's like picking your favorite your favorite actor that's played Jason or played Michael Myers.
But I also feel like those can kind of get a pass.
A little bit. I mean, they don't talk. They wear a mask.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people prefer Kane Hodder as Jason just because
Oh, absolutely.
he did change the physicality of Jason
Mm-hmm.
a little bit.
And that makes a difference. I mean, not to detract from anybody that played him prior, because I'll admit, if I had to choose like a Jason prior to Kane Hodder, Ted White, the man who recently passed away, played Jason in Friday the 13th Part 4. There was something about his physicality that just worked for me. Like, I liked. He just seemed aggressive, like he was just on a mission. And he doesn't have all the nuances like Kane does, but he brought something to it that's memorable, like it's burned in my head.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, and, you know, it's even the subtle things like Kane Hodder would do the shoulder shrug when Jason would be frustrated and be like breathing heavy.
Mm-hmm.
And he would make Jason do a full body turn quickly because it just added like this intimidation to it, because in most of the films you see Jason walking and killing, but when you see him do these sudden quick movements, it throws you off about the character a little bit and it makes you nervous. I mean, we've even talked before about how sometimes the wrong actor in the roles can change it for the worse. Like I think we talked about one of the Halloween films.
Yeah, in Part 2, Dick Warlock, he just slowly ambled through the streets, and it was like, dude, what are you doing? It's not about walking slow, just fucking walk. And he just walks ever so slowly.
Yeah. And, you know, I think too, instead of the studios redoing all of these huge franchises that have done really well, and I've talked about this with you before too, why not remake films that at the time did not do very well because maybe they were limited by the effects of the time, or maybe there were some things that needed to be done just a little differently.
Mm-hmm.
Give those films another chance. Make them something, you know, bigger. You know, a perfect example, and they were fairly popular, but Critters, you know, Critters had a TV series for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And their TV series did really well. And they actually did something. They took a note from Gremlins. They actually had a critter that was a good guy, and nobody had seen that before. You know, it was an existing idea, but they added something new to it, and it worked for it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, horror as a whole right now is so divisive, and I think that comes with the territory of it's just continued to get bigger.
Yeah.
And the more people that are in the pot, the more people are going to disagree on things.
Sure.
You know, it's just like with the Marvel films and the series and everything. You know, I hear the argument all the time where people are like, She-Hulk's a fantastic show. She-Hulk sucks. You know, people have their reasons, or you know, they're changing. They changed Kingpin some in. Ever since Disney got a hold of it, they've changed Kingpin too much. They're making him too strong. Blah 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 blah. People argue about random shit all the time with it, and it's starting to pull over into horror even more than it did.
Yeah.
And I worry that we're running out of horror actors too. I know this sounds weird, but a lot of the horror actors that all of us grew up with and enjoy seeing in that kind of setting, they're all getting old.
Yeah.
And there's no way around it. We have some new actors that are getting involved into horror, and they're good, you know. I love the Skarsgårds in horror as a whole. Just fantastic.
Wasn't Bill Skarsgård, I don't mean to like deviate.
No, you're fine.
I remember he's going to be the Crow. That's what it was.
Yeah,
I'd heard that he had another big role that kind of, I mean, I don't know if I'd call The Crow a horror film, but it has.
Well,
elements.
I guess this isn't going to be. I guess it's not going to be a movie though. I guess it's going to be a series.
Huh. I thought it was.
I
a
had
movie.
seen. Yeah, I apparently when there was something in the news about it, they had listed it as a series instead of a movie or something weird.
Well, anyway, continue.
No, you're fine. But I can't think of a lot of people right now who are real synonymous with horror, like younger performers that have come up. And you know, a lot of people say that horror is a stepping stone genre to get you into other genres, and I don't believe that. I don't.
I
think
there's truth to it for sure.
Yeah, and but I think if you're good at something, especially if you're good at being in those types of films, I think you should go for it. What's the girl's name from X? Is it Mia Goth?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I would consider her to be more of a horror performer.
Sure.
She's been in a ton of horror films. That seems to be her bag. The girl that's playing in the Wednesday series, that's playing Wednesday, she's been in quite a few horror films.
True, she was also in X.
Yep, and she was in Scream as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think she gets killed in the beginning, if I remember right.
No, she was going to get killed, and
that's right.
She was the sister that survived.
That's right. I just that's what makes me worry about the genre. I think we all need to have we need to have faces that are familiar in the genre. When we go to see a horror film and we see like that somebody's name is on it, we go, okay, that person's going to be in this. Hell yeah, I'm going to go see it.
Sure.
Like that excites me. It's like when you see, oh, well, Heather Langenkamp's going to be in this. Oh, Jamie Lee Curtis is going to be in this. And, that doesn't mean that they can't do other films by any means. But there's a lot of people that should just step into some more horror films.
Sure.
Like, speaking of an older actress who's getting back into the horror scene, which this one really surprised me. Shelley Duvall is going to be in a new horror film. And that really surprised me because she left Hollywood because Hollywood was just cruel to her.
Well, Kubrick in general was a...
Well, he sounded like... Everything I've read about him, I don't think he would have been a pleasant person to have a conversation with.
No. I mean, to some degree, I'm not advocating or condoning his actions. But I understand, I guess, from a director standpoint, what he was trying to elicit. Because if his behavior to her made her give the performance she gave in The Shining, then kudos to the director and his method for getting the reactions he did out of her, because she was phenomenal in The Shining. That said, I do not condone those actions because he put her through a lot of mental issues because of that shit. Yeah. And she didn't deserve that.
Well, it's just like, I can't remember what director it was, but he lied to some kid and told the kid that his parents were in a car accident on their way to the studio and that he wasn't allowed to leave until they filmed the scene. And it was a scene where the kid was supposed to be sad. And
shit.
He did it to make the kid cry. And I'm just like, God, you really wanted that performance, didn't you? It's just
yeah, that's
crazy.
Cruel, man.
But, Lord. Now, horror as a whole, I mean, it's exciting because there's a lot of good that's happening, but it's also worrisome because let's be real. We don't know what's going to happen day to day. What do you think is the thing that is going to keep horror on the up and up? Like, is there something in particular that makes you still excited other than, there are still some quality films? Is there anything in particular with horror that you're really happy to see happen?
I'd say with everything that we've said negatively, I guess, from, the studio system interfering to people just bogging down some of the garbage. And, that was even a point I wanted to make, is where you said indie was the way to go. I wholeheartedly agree, but I also feel that because indie is the way to go and you have those trash filmmakers who just churn out garbage, who don't understand the genre, they make it harder for the indie filmmakers to have their films noticed because everyone's doing all these things. I mean, you take a look at so many that you thumb through and you're just like, what the fuck is this? And you never hear favorable reviews. So even if you watch it, there's something to that. If something is at a 5 or a 6, and I know this is me advocating for critics, but I feel like there is some truth to it. Terrifier. Saw it had like maybe a 6-star rating. Okay. I thought that's fair. To me, that says, give it a watch. It might be worth your time. Now, if I see something that has a 3, I'm probably not going to give it my time because that's a pretty large group of people saying this movie is terrible, and gives me enough confidence to know that I'm probably not going to like this. 6, I feel is a fair assessment to say, I'll give it a watch. You never know. I mean, hell, some of my favorite Friday the 13th and Halloween films are, 5 stars out of 10. And I'm just like, yeah, okay, I get it. But with the indie scene, it is the way to go. I feel confident that the genre is going to continue to get better if we stay on the right path. Because the one thing about the horror genre and the communities, if we don't go down the roads where we're at each other's throats because we didn't like the newest Friday the 13th, because guarantee you the prequel series is going to split everyone down the middle. And I don't get it. And I genuinely feel like it comes down to your preference. I know we didn't bring this up, but Child's Play, consistent series from 88 to now. And the people, where it divides people is when it got comical, when it got a little goofy, a little more meta, self-aware. Seed of Chucky probably being the biggest detractor, where that's where people kind of turned away, like, oh no, I don't like that. That's too much. Fair enough. But, they've woven it in, so you could still like it or dislike it up to now, but I still feel like it works within the context of everything they're doing. There's a passion there. That's what this genre has. It has passionate fans. It has passionate people who love what they're creating. And we've got to stay on that path, because if we allow the studio system to get in and start dictating what kind of horror movies we get, because we saw the ratings board did that in the 80s, and that's why we have neutered Friday the 13th films when, oh man, that's part 7, man. What we missed there. But no, I mean, like I said, you have passionate filmmakers, you have passionate fans, and we've got to maintain that passion and get away from all the negativity. That was the one thing that I championed before Halloween Ends came out, is that the communities are phenomenal. They love, no matter how good or bad it is, and they can admit when something is bad, but they also embrace it as like, yeah, it's bad, but you know what? I love it. It's cheesy good, whatever it is. That's the kind of beauty of the communities that I love, is that passion. And we're starting to deviate, man. And you don't have to like everything.
Yeah.
You don't. And you're not any more or less of a fan if you don't. It's fine. There are probably tons of horror films that people just say, oh man, this is the best, and it's just not my cup of tea. I'll tell you that point blank. I don't care for it. It's not my bag.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you for latching onto it and keeping it alive, because you are that fan base. I am a fan base over here. There are multiple. We've explored that too. How many subgenres of horror there are? There's something for everybody here. So much for everybody. And we cannot allow divisiveness in this community. Disagreeing, sure, but not divisiveness.
Yeah, no, the horror community is strongest when it is together.
Yeah.
And it seems like everybody has an opinion, and opinions are fine. It's when the arguing comes into play.
Mm-hmm.
I saw some nasty comments between people on social media for Halloween Ends, and just looking at it, I was like, these are not the fans that I remember seeing.
Mm-hmm.
I know people that didn't like Halloween Kills, but I remember people seeing Halloween Kills and disagreeing and going, man, I didn't really like it. And, somebody else on the other side go, well, I thought it was a good movie. Well, it just wasn't my kind of movie, but I do guess that the kills were pretty cool. People find common ground. I think with Halloween Ends, it was the fact that they were closing it out. It was the finality of it that really caused the issues that it caused, because now people are thinking, oh, well, this story's completely over now. And I think that is what caused a lot of those really negative reactions and the animosity toward it.
And it may have. I mean, I definitely would agree. I mean, I didn't realize how much people didn't care for Halloween Kills until this movie came out. And I was like, really? No one really? Okay. Because I loved it. And
yeah.
But I didn't hear about it. It's like you said, it just kind of went unnoticed. People had their disagreements about it, but it was just like, and we dismissed it. That's what I'm talking about. That's what we need to get back to. I don't know how we got here in a year.
Right? And I have to admit, though, with Halloween Kills, even the director was like, I made the movie I wanted to make, and I am proud of it no matter what anybody thinks. And the fact that he did that, I think that shut a lot of people up.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad that he did that. I really am. It's one of those things. I don't think everybody's always going to make a great movie. They can't all be winners. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're happy with what you made, at the end of the day, that's what matters. A lot of it's a cash grab now. And if you bring that passion back to it, you're going to see fantastic results.
Yeah.
You and I have talked about it. One of these days we're gonna get together and get this movie stuff done that we've been talking about. And when we talk about it and we talk about the characters and everything, we have a good time with it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what matters. And I know that we'll have a good time filming, and if we have to play certain characters or whatever, we'll have a good time with it. And that's what matters. And I think it would be great to release it on the indie circuit.
Mm-hmm.
Would it be cool if a studio decided to pick it up? Yeah, that would be cool, but only under the circumstances that they would be like, we're going to let you do what you want to do with it. Here's some money. Here's a studio. You do what you want with it. But that doesn't happen very often.
No.
Normally the studio goes, well, we want to make these changes and do this. And that's why more people go toward the indie side of things. You can get funding. You can get crowdsourced funding. You can make these films. You can get them released. Does it take a lot more work? Yes. But you get to make better films.
And I'll even kind of speak to some of the studios. I know when I'm thinking studios, I'm thinking big. I'm talking like Disney, Universal, Paramount. Those are the big studios, and they are the ones that they're the ones that kind of shy away from some things. But if you look at production houses like Blumhouse, who did Halloween, obviously they weren't like the sole production company involved. I mean, there were other hands in the pot. Yeah. And Rough House Studios, I think, is the one, David Gordon Green and Danny McBride, that's theirs. So their producers' hands are in the pie. So they have a way to make that final call and say, no, we're fronting the money for this too. So when the studio system is completely out of it, like the big studios, they're not the ones fronting the money. I feel like that allows for these creators to do that, and that's where I feel I give a lot of credit to Blumhouse, and even to some degree, I'll say even Lionsgate. They're a little bit more hands off. I mean, they've produced and kind of been behind some bigger, like the Saw franchise, for example. I mean, that's some pretty graphic shit right there, and they were just like, just do whatever, as long as we can get an R rating, we're fine. And
I also I'll give some credit. I'll give some credit to Warner Brothers just in this regard. Warner Brothers now owns New Line Cinema. They've owned New Line Cinema for quite a while now. Mm-hmm. And when they release things under New Line Cinema's logo, when they release their horror films under that, they seem to be pretty standoffish. We have gotten quite a few good films from New Line Cinema the last few years. So I will give them credit all day for that. They did, let's see, I'm pretty sure it was released through them. The Conjuring films, if I remember correctly, as well. Yeah. And those have done fantastic. I'm sure there's a bunch that I'm missing right now, but those are like the big ones that stick in my mind. Was Insidious through New Line? I feel like it was. Might be wrong.
Don't think so, because I know I watched that recently, but then again, I could be mistaking it. Or did I watch? No, I'm mistaking that for something else. So it might have been. I feel like
can't remember off the top of my head
for some reason, but I could be wrong.
It very well may be. But, it's one of those things where these studios that are still allowing really good things to be released, they are very standoffish. And that's the way that it should be, as far as I'm concerned. Hell, I mean, if you think about it, New Line Cinema gave us one of the biggest trilogies of all time.
It's true.
They gave us Lord of the Rings. Mm-hmm. And they just threw the money and went, do what you're doing. And look at how that turned out. That turned out fantastic.
Exactly.
And it's funny, I'm going to say it, and get your shots ready again. It's the house that Freddy built, bitches. And, one of their founders is actually a relation to Lynn Shay, who I absolutely adore. She is the sweetest woman in the world. Mm-hmm. She's like 4 foot tall. She's so little. But no,
Sony, by the way. To answer your
Sony.
question.
Okay. I couldn't remember. There's a company too that they release some pretty good stuff sometimes.
Well, when they don't spoil it all in their damn trailers, their marketing team is horrible,
True.
and they don't know superhero movies for shit.
That's one thing. I think that when a film comes out, they should release just 2 trailers. I think they should release just a teaser and then one trailer that just kind of gives you just a general idea and just keep the audience wondering what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, I get wanting to release things, but a lot of the time in these films, you get everything released in the trailer, and you're like, okay, all the good stuff just got shown to me. Do I even need to go see the movie?
I mean, you take a look at something like Marvel, or even the DC movies. You don't need to spoil the shit. You're selling people on the character already, and if with Marvel, what all do you need to sell?
Yeah,
people are in or they're not at this point.
Yeah.
So give us a brief synopsis, and then just go about your business. Everybody, people are going to show up.
I appreciate when they did. When they released the trailers for No Way Home, I appreciate that they edited out the other Spider-Man from it and things like that. I appreciate those little nods because people knew, people already knew that they were going to be there.
If Marvel hadn't stepped in, they would have spoiled them in the trailer.
Yeah, I'm glad. Yeah, I'm glad that they didn't just reveal that. And there were some parts, people pointed out in one of the scenes in the trailer, nobody kicks Lizard in the face, but you can clearly see him get kicked in the face. We all knew that they were going to be in the movie. We just not seeing them in the trailer and then seeing them in the movie was still exciting though.
Right.
It's one of those things. I hope people start getting into the mindset of, I'm going to watch this horror movie just for the fun of it. Because somewhere along the line, and it is true, it just recently happened, this year. And I think it's because Halloween Ends come out, and we've gotten a bunch of new horror films. There's been conversations publicly happening about franchises. They settled a lawsuit with Friday the 13th. They're still looking to do stuff with Nightmare on Elm Street. Heather Langenkamp spoke out about wanting to be Nancy again. There's so much happening. There's so many possibilities, and people are kind of frustrated because things aren't happening the way that they want them to happen in movies that are coming out. Mm-hmm. So I think that makes them worry about films that could possibly come out. And, we all just need to get to the mindset of, why do we watch movies? We watch them to have a good time.
Yeah,
we watch them to evoke emotions, to feel good about a film, to feel happy and get scared, get that excitement. That's why I had a good time watching Terrifier 2. I went into it with the mindset of, this is going to be a bloody, gory, crazy time, and I'm going to enjoy watching Art be a monster. I didn't go in thinking, well, this movie's going to have to be this way, and this is going to happen, and this is going to happen. Stop overanalyzing everything and just sit back and relax.
Mm-hmm. Turn that brain off.
And I haven't really done much on the front of horror TV, and it's sad, but I haven't really... There's the new series on Netflix, Cabinet of Curiosities, I believe it's called. I want
to check that out, yeah.
I've heard good things about it. It looks really good. There's a show on... I believe it's Paramount. I think it's called Evil or something like that.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
These people can see these demons and everything, and it looks really, really funny. But I don't know. I'm hoping the horror genre gets sorted out, because it just kind of seems like things are good, but people's expectations are kind of putting a sour taste in my mouth.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I don't know. I hope this episode doesn't sound like a bitch session.
No, it's just explaining stuff. And I honestly feel like that more often than not, probably the people that we're talking to right now would probably agree. It always seems like the outliers are a smaller group than we realize. They're just louder. And they make their presence known more. So, yeah, I mean, I think everyone will agree. We're all fans of this. We all love it, and we just don't want to see it destroyed. I mean, Christ's sake, say what you want about Star Wars, and I hate to bring it up again, but you talk about the most toxic fan base. That's why I just have to turn that shit off. I don't give a shit what you think about Andor or the Ahsoka series or what. I don't give a shit. I'm going to watch it regardless of what you think because I enjoy it as it is. Present it to me however you want. I'm going to watch it.
Yeah.
You know? Same with Marvel movies. You can hate them all day long. Guess what? Don't give a shit. I'm going to watch them.
It's content that you enjoy. That's all that matters.
That's all that matters. If sometimes, I mean, I will agree. Sometimes I watch it and be like, well, yeah, you know, it wasn't like the most amazing thing ever. And my brain was just like, oh my God, I've got to watch this again. I watched it. I enjoyed it for what it was. And then I was done with it. Some I enjoy more, some I don't. But overall, I will continue to consume it.
Yeah. Hell, let me put it this way. There's so many different things that different people like. Look at how many porn categories there are. We all have different things we like.
Mm-hmm. I mean, your kinks are your kinks. I don't understand people who like getting pissed on, but that's your kink.
I mean, hell, that could be an episode, horror porn, because there's plenty of that.
Oh boy, I don't know if I've seen that.
We could do horror movies that have more nudity than kills, because there's plenty of those. Oh man.
Wow.
But yeah, you know, I'm excited to see what happens, and I'm excited to see what happens in the world of indie films.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say this, and then this was a question that I sort of had for you. The question is, what would you like to really see happen within the next year for horror? But I'll tell you real quick what I would like to see is more indie films maybe get the same treatment that Terrifier 2 got.
Yeah, that would be nice. And, you know, if studios want to start getting involved, maybe don't get too involved. Trust that the filmmakers they're passionate about what they're doing. They know what they're trying to do. They want to do a good job. I mean, if someone came on board to direct, let's use, oh Christ, I don't, all right, yeah, we'll use Texas Chainsaw because it needs one. Whoever's got the rights to it right now, which I think is Legendary, and they were like, hey, we want to do a Texas Chainsaw Massacre. We're taking pitches. And then they find someone who has a really interesting pitch. And the director comes in and explains what he wants to do. And even if the studio is just like that, trust that he knows what he's talking about. He might not be able to convey it properly. I know I have that problem sometimes too. Up here in my brain, I can see it clear as day. And it's going to be amazing. But maybe I can't really convey what I'm seeing to you in words because it's difficult. But we can see it clear. So trust that your director is going to make the best version of this movie he can, and you need to stay out of it. Now, if budgetary concerns, I get that. You got to get involved, and you'll be like, hey man, you're spending just a little extra money than we kind of agreed on. I get it. But the overall process, don't start saying, well, hey, can we have the character do this? Like, can we have the character do that? Don't do something stupid like John Peters asking Kevin Smith if there could be a giant spider in a fucking Superman movie, or if Superman has to wear his outfit. What kind of dumb shit is that to ask about the character? That's like saying, well, so does Leatherface have to use a chainsaw? Yes, that's kind of the thing. Does Jason have to have a machete? Yes. He can use other tools, but that's kind of his primary thing he goes back to. Does Freddy need the glove? Are we sold on that? Yes, goddammit. That's a thing. You know, stupid little notes like that. Trust, these are fans. These are people who grew up on it. They're fans of the shit now. Those are the people that need to be behind the camera.
Yeah.
Not just some self-appointed directors like, hey, do you want this job? Sure, whatever. Because they're not going to care, and that's why it's going to flop.
And, it used to be a lot easier to reach out to a studio and get a hold of people.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that, there's probably millions of people that have ideas that would call, and all of these studios would just be overwhelmed with the amount of people that would be submitting ideas or talking to them. But I feel like people should be able to maybe submit an idea or discuss something with someone that's a higher up.
Mm-hmm.
Be able to get a hold of people. There's a way to create jobs. Just have a whole team dedicated to taking in ideas, and and putting them out there. And it drives me crazy because and we talk about it on the show all the time. If anybody's listening, we'll work cheap. We're affordable.
Sure.
You know, it's one of those things where if you don't know somebody in the business, or you don't already have like years in the business, a lot of the time they don't want to hear anything you have to say. And I get it. There's laws, and they can't have anything that's sent to them that's unsolicited. You know, it's just as easy as sending over an email. You know, I had talked to somebody that had worked on some indie films, and I was discussing some ideas with them. And every time that we would email, they would email me, and at the bottom of the email, they would have a thing that said, you know, these emails are going to be saved or whatever, and, you know, for your protection and our protection, you know, boom, all of our ideas, like you see everything I'm sending you. So if you stole my idea, I could be like, here's the email where I sent it, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. You know, it's one of those things where, again, that's why indie films seem to be the way to go, because you have the control. You don't have to go through the middleman. It's harder to get funding. Mm-hmm. You know, I wish that more studios would look at indie films and give some of those indie film creators a chance. You know, even if it's one of those things where it's the movie's already made and the studio goes, we want to distribute your film. Yeah. We would love to distribute it. You already made it. We want to distribute it. We want to help you distribute. We will pay to distribute it because we love it. Yeah. You know, it's crazy, you know, even like the film Mama. Mm-hmm. That movie was made because of a short on YouTube. You know, crazy shit happens like that all the time. Yeah. Lights Out, that's another one. It was based off of a short on YouTube. The question is, did the person who wrote the short get to help write the script, or did they just go to them and go, hey, we were inspired by your idea, we want to buy your idea, and then they write some big script based off of it? That's the thing that kills me, is if you have an idea, a lot of the times the studios don't want you involved. They just want to buy it from you.
And that's the problem. Once you start taking the creator out of it, then you're losing the idea. You're just... all they're seeing is dollar signs because they've seen a great idea and they're like, oh man, we can really capitalize on that, and then we can just do whatever. We just cut them out of it. Then you've lost everything right there. That's like saying, hey, if they'd have said Halloween, if that would have been a short back in 1978, if that was a thing, like that whole idea had never been conceived of, and John Carpenter was a young man on YouTube and he made this 30-minute short about a babysitter or just some kid killing his sister, whatever it may be. And then that was so popular, studio saw that and was like, oh, dude, we've got to make this. We're going to take that idea, tell John Carpenter to take a hike, because we're just going to take the idea. He can go fuck himself. Then you've lost everything. That whole franchise is dead on arrival.
We would have had a very different film.
Mm-hmm. Because you're missing the point. You're missing the passion behind it, because that guy who created it knows so much more. Okay, if I pitched you an idea right now to a story that I have in my head, I'm giving you a snippet. I know so much more about it in my head that exists. Yep. This whole universe, this whole story, backstories, everything. People make Bibles of this stuff. It's here, and it's there for them. They know where it goes. They know what it needs to do.
And that's what blows my mind. You know, they buy the idea, and then they hire another writer, which what they do, that, you know, they hire writers that don't, you know, get paid a whole lot. A lot of writers don't get credit. You know, they have one writer that's basically in charge of everything, and then they have like ghost writers that, you know, do a lot of the work, and they don't get credit. They don't get paid a whole lot. Mm-hmm. And then they hire all these people when you could have just hired the guy that created it, made him a deal to let him still own a portion of his idea, and have that guy come on, not only be the writer, help consult, do all kinds of work. You've got a valuable asset that can tell you stories to continue whatever the idea is, to give you more insight into the characters, to make sure that the film is done the correct way. Mm. And they just shit on that stuff, and it drives me insane. And you see it happen all the time. It's just like with Nightmare on Elm Street. Here I go talking about it again. You know, the Nightmare on Elm Street films that did the best had Wes Craven involved with them to some extent. Mm-hmm. He wrote and directed the first one. The third one, he did a little bit of consulting on. You get through all the other films, they have him come back for New Nightmare. And New Nightmare is held as one of the best Nightmare on Elm Street films that was ever made. And this is after Freddy's dead. This is after they killed him off.
Yeah.
Because they made Freddy's Dead after they made Dream Child, because the studio was pushing to get Dream Child put out. They were making edits to it. They were cutting stuff out. And so the film wasn't as good as it could have been. And then the studio was like, we want to make some more money off of Freddy. So, Wes Craven, you got any ideas? And sure enough, Wes Craven said, hold my beer. I'll reinvent Freddy. And that's what he did.
Mm-hmm.
You know, John Carpenter coming back and helping with Halloween. Say what you will about the films. Him coming back and being involved meant a lot. And you can see in the films that John Carpenter was involved.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the people that create this stuff, like you were saying, they're passionate. Nothing is better than passion. You can hire as many writers as you want. You can hire as many big names as you want. But if you don't let the person put their passion into the project, it's going to suffer.
Yeah.
So, man, we're getting all deep on this episode.
Oh, yeah. That's what
Next time we're going to have to talk about blood and guts and gore.
Sure.
But no, that's about what I feel on the horror front. I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to put out there.
No, I pretty much kind of laid out a lot of my feelings, and I really hope that I would love more than anything for people to kind of chime in on this as well. We continue to reach out to our fellow horror ramblers out there, and everyone's quiet. We know we've got listeners, but people are quiet, and I guess we just don't social media properly. So maybe we're just gonna have to push.
I need to social media more, apparently.
Yeah, apparently. But hey, let us know how you felt about this. What is your feelings on the state of horror right now? Do you agree with us, disagree with us, whatever? Let us know on Twitter at Horror Ramblings. If you've got more to say and a tweet just won't do, you can send us an email at horrorramblings@gmail.com and we'll read it out on the show. Do you love social media groups? Follow us on Facebook. Join our Facebook group. Hang out with fellow horror fans like yourself. And you can even find us on Instagram to see an assortment of horror images when we decide to post. And you can also join us on Discord and discuss horror stuff if you want. We're starting to get a few other faces in there ever so slightly. If you're feeling generous and want to support the show financially, you can head on over to patreon.com/Pencil and Paper Productions. Chucking a buck can help this and other shows like it grow. And also maybe that Yuki and John Patreon buffet. I know we don't get a dime out of that, but if you want something fun and cool, you can do that too. But I'm just saying. If you want to say nice things, head on over to Apple Podcasts. Give us that 5-star review. You can express your feelings, help the show grow, and you can do that very same thing on Spotify if you're so inclined, and even answer our questions and polls like I post every week. It's all appreciated. But most importantly, tell your fellow horror fiends to search Horror Ramblings on the preferred podcasting platform. And if nothing else, keep up with any and all things at pencilpaperproductions.com/horror-ramblings. Links are in the show notes for your convenience.
And remember, guys, stay spooky out there.
This has been the Horror Ramblings podcast. Join us next time for even more.
This has been a Pencil and Paper Podcast Network production.